Really close. Shana Tova, everyone. Whoa.
Good morning, everyone. Just a few reminders. First of all, immediately after the service at 12:15 in the Centennial Room is our first study session with Jonah Orlovsky there and on Zoom. And you heard about the schedule for the rest of the day. Please silence your cell phones. Please do not hesitate to join the choir in song. For those with requiring hearing assistance, the sanctuary has a built-in hearing loop. For some of our prayers this morning, when it's traditional to stand, please know that you are, of course, always free to remain seated and your voices will be heard just as well. And finally, a reminder that the front part of the left, my left, your right section is mask only. If you are there, please keep your mask on at all times. Shana Tova.
Here I am again, without much to offer by way of moral worth. I have a rich collection of defeats. Maybe that's to your liking. I don't know, do you? If I'm to be quite frank, your likes and dislikes have never been all that clear to me. Presumably love is something you're in favor of, and I've found it possible to love, but never without a certain anguish. Whether that's the way you intended it or that's a problem all my own, I can't say. Can you? I've never wanted to pain others. I've never wanted to pain myself. I guess I can plead good intentions, but I needn't tell you about good intentions and the road to hell. I've often wondered, did you yourself intend that to live would be so complicated? To find a way in the world so hazardous? Did you have any idea at all that living would involve such confusion and such heartbreak? I can't be sure any of this will mean much to you. I can't even be sure that you exist as more than a figment of my own mysterious psyche. It's a risk to open up to you. Who knows, I may be branding myself a terrible fool. But what's not a risk? What's guaranteed to be foolproof? So, here I am, again, praying for some modest bravery so that I can go on saying to you, here I am, again.
Hallelujah.
Please read responsively. Let every living soul bless your name, eternal God, and let every human being acclaim your majesty forever and ever. Through all eternity, you alone are our sovereign God. God of all ages, of all creations, of all generations, all praise to you. You guide the world with steadfast love, your creatures with tender mercy. You neither slumber nor sleep. You awaken the sleeping and arouse the dormant. You give speech to the silent, freedom to the enslaved, and justice to the oppressed. To you alone we give thanks. Though our mouths should flow with songs of the sea, our tongues with melodies as the roaring waves, our lips with praise as the heaven's wide expanse. And though our eyes were to shine as the sun and the moon, our arms would spend like eagle's wings, our feet swiftly as deer. Still we could not fully thank you, our God and God of all ages, or bless your name enough, for even one of your infinite kindnesses your ancestors sent to us. Therefore, our God, limbs and tongue and heart and mind shall join to praise your name. Every tongue will yet affirm you, and every soul give you allegiance. As it is written, all my limbs shall say, who is like you, Eternal One? And David sang, bless the Eternal One, O my soul, and let all that is within me bless God's holy name.
We continue on the bottom of page 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvoreat hakol. Maker of darkness and dawn, the God who opens the gates of mercy, who gives light to all who await forgiveness, be with us on this atonement day. God of hope and joy, be with us this day. Be with us as we look for strength to be free, freedom to struggle against those who worship power, and power to resist all who would oppress us. God of freedom and light, be with us this day.
Torah techa, v'dabek one and only God, you have made each of us unique and formed us to be united in one family of life. Be with us, Eternal One, as we seek to unite our lives with your power and your love.
We proclaim now your oneness and our own hope for unity. We acclaim your creative power in the universe and in ourselves, the law that binds world to world and heart to heart.
Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'am v'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shofecha uv'kumecha ug'shartam le'oto yadecha v'hayu letotafo bein einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Lehiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Amen. In this world, waiting to be redeemed, our hearts cry out, cannot our dearest hopes at last come true? Many are our defeats, yet how many are our deliverances? After servitude to Pharaoh, we choose service to God. After exile in Babylon, we rebuild God's shrine. Yesterday's wounds, so nearly fatal, begin to heal, and Israel, living still, plants new seeds of redemption.
Let the time come when all the peoples will be joined in bonds that cannot break. The nations will yet be at peace. The earth will yield good fruit. Mountains and waters will exult. Those who sowed in tears will reap in joy, and all will sing with one accord.
Adonai,
Umevi Yumalim Negenehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Sovrenu Lechaim, Melech Hafiz B'Chaim, V'chotenu B'Sefer HaChaim, Leman Chaim Chaim, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Elam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atara B'Moshiach, Mechakel Hayim Be'esed, Mechayeh HaKol Be'rachamim Rabim, Somek Noflim Be'rofei Cholim, U'matir Asurim, U'mekayem Elunato, Mishnei Afar, Michamocha Ba'Geburot, U'midom Elav, Melech Memid U'mekayeh, U'matzliach Yeshua, Michamocha Ba'Avraham, Zoher Yitzhak, Lechaim Berachamim, Lechaim Berachamim, V'ne'eman atah Elot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol.
Responsively, page 8. Your might, O God, is everlasting.
Help us to use our strength for good and not for evil.
You are the source of life and blessing.
Help us to choose life for ourselves and our children.
You are the support of the falling.
Help us to lift up the fallen.
You are the author of freedom.
Help us to set free the captive.
You are our hope in death as in life.
Help us to keep faith with those who sleep in the dust.
Your might, O God, is everlasting.
Help us to use our strength for good.
You may be seated.
Please read responsively at the bottom of page 8. Unatana Tokev. Let us proclaim the sacred power of this day. It is awesome and full of dread. For on this day your dominion is exalted, your throne established in steadfast love. There in truth you reign. In truth you are judge and arbiter, counsel and witness. You write and you seal, you record and account. You remember deeds long forgotten. You open the book of our days, and what is written there proclaims itself, for it bears the signature of every human being. The great shofar is sounded, the still small voice is heard, the angels gripped by fear and trembling declare in awe, this is the day of judgment, for even the hosts of heaven are judged, as all who dwell on earth stand arrayed before you. As the shepherd seeks out the flock and makes the sheep pass under the staff, so do you muster and number and consider every soul, setting the bounds of every creature's life and decreeing its destiny.
Rosh Hashanah,
Shalev umi ist ja sar mi ani umi asher mi shofel umi
We continue together in the middle of page 9. Berosh Hashana Yikatevun, Uvyom Tzom Kippur Yichatemun. Together. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass on? How many shall come to be? Who shall live and who shall die? Who shall see ripe age and who shall not? Who shall perish by fire and who by water? Who by sword and who by beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who shall be secure and who shall be driven? Who shall be tranquil and who shall be troubled? Who shall be poor and who shall be rich? Who shall be humbled and who exalted? But repentance, prayer, and tzedakah temper judgment's severe decree.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot. The whole world is filled with your glory. The whole world is filled with your glory. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Adonai Tzvaot. The whole world is filled with your glory.
To all generations we will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed is the Eternal One who rules in holiness. You are with us in our prayer, in our love, in our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and to do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble and pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Chaim v'chesed v'rachamim. Chaim v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim Shalom Tova Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Sim Shalom Tova
Peace and happiness, blessing, grace, love, and mercy, may these descend on all Israel and all the world. Bless us, O God, one and all, with the light of your presence. For in the light of your presence we find the fullness of life, faithful love and charity, compassion, blessing, and peace. Together, help us, O God of peace, by our deeds
to inscribe ourselves in the book of life and blessing, righteousness, and peace.
Praise be the one who teaches Israel and all peoples to love and pursue peace and bring it to all the earth.
Good morning. My name is Phil Siegel. I told coworkers of mine that I was taking the day off for Yom Kippur and that I was speaking for 5 minutes at this morning's service. Many of our coworkers, where I'm the principal and director of education for our therapeutic day school and our hospital, are probably contemplating becoming Jewish right now because they believe a miracle will be taking place here this morning, me only talking for 5 minutes. I'll tell you something now that I've never told anyone before. As a child, I did most of my talking rather loudly and just to myself. I was born with hearing in just one ear and with very limited hearing. I could hear best whatever sounds were closest, so talking to myself out loud would shatter the stillness of the silence, and it made me feel safer. Then about 4 months ago, a wonderful surgeon drilled a screw into my skull, and the screw, right on schedule, became anchored solidly in my skull over the next 3 months as the bone grew around the screw to hold it into place. Most of the screw was within the skull, but there was a little piece of screw that protrudes out of my head, kind of like that bolt that Frankenstein has. And about 4 weeks ago, the base of the screw, now solidly encased in bone, a wonderful audiologist attached a hearing device to the outside protruding Frankenstein part of the screw. And now, for the first time in my life, ever, I'm hearing from both ears. It's truly life-changing. I'm hearing now pretty much as well as anyone. It's going to be sensory overload for the next few months as my brain learns to decode sounds at a volume and pitch that I've never heard before. That chirping feedback I heard yesterday wasn't feedback in the hearing device, it was birds chirping that I had never heard before. When walking our dog last night, I stopped for the car I heard coming, but when I looked up, that car was still 2 blocks away. When multiple people are talking at once, I'm now hearing all their voices. The other night we went out for dinner and my wife was sitting next to me and was speaking in her normal, rather soft voice. But the guy at the next table, trying to impress his date, was speaking in a very loud voice. I could hear very little what my wife was saying. But I could hear every word from the next table about how this guy's marketing idea was going to make the world a better place for snowmobile drivers everywhere. 4 weeks ago, I sat in a meeting with 22 people, and I could hear only 3 or 4 of the people closest to me. For the others, I was reading their lips. 4 days ago, I was in a meeting with 22 people, and I could hear every person and every word. What does this mean? It means I can listen to sounds and words all around me that I've never heard before. With my limited hearing, I have been great in working in mental health with students and patients with disabilities who are nonverbal because I understand them well, because I understand better than most how to understand the unspoken word. I understand better than most that a word unspoken is not a silent word. It's a word spoken in a language without sound, and the gift of deafness I was given in my right ear has allowed me to become a contributor in special education, and I'll be forever grateful for that gift. If I had the choice of being born with hearing in both ears or to be born as I was with hearing in just one ear, I'm not sure I would have been chosen to be born with full hearing, as I know there are wonderful people that I hear them speak in silence, And the richness of their silent voices has enriched my own life and allowed me to enrich theirs. But now that I'm hearing almost everything, I am so looking forward to new conversations I will be having at work with our therapeutic day school and our mental health hospital. Our mental health hospital, like so many around the country, has over 95% of its patients there because they've either tried to take their own life or have contemplated taking their own life away. While I've always been able to speak with our students and patients one-to-one, now I will be able to lead group discussions and not miss anything. I am so blessed. Previously, in group discussions, I've been like a basketball player following the basketball. Whenever anyone would speak in a classroom or any room, I would just keep walking around the room and stand next to whoever was speaking so that I could follow the ball of the conversation and hear them. It's an interesting style for classrooms with kids as well as with teachers and therapists and debriefing meetings, and I probably won't give it up completely. I found that people appreciate the extra effort of knowing that they're being seen and being heard. So what is the takeaway gift for each of us on what was a very rainy and now becoming a very beautiful Yom Kippur morning? What can we learn and benefit from? We can recognize together that we can more greatly appreciate the gifts that we've been given. We should not take our hearing, our vision, our ability to speak for granted. We can consider using our abilities to see, our abilities to hear, and our abilities to speak more vividly, more purposefully, and more based on prayer. For our families, we can use the gifts that we have been given to see our families more, to listen to them more, to speak to them more. In our therapeutic day school, we have a no cell phone policy in the classroom. Perhaps all of us can consider that policy for our dinner tables. For the world, we can use our abilities to speak, to see, and to hear as a way of seeking out new friendships and new connections for the benefit of others as well as for ourselves. And for the parts of our world that are not so beautiful, we can use our gifts to hear, to see, to speak, and to understand in order to fulfill our destiny of Tikkun Olam, to repair the world, and to be there for one another in our pursuit of refuah, shilama, a blessing for full healing. Thank you.
We continue our service on the top of page 11 with our vidui, our confession. Our God, God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not be deaf to our pleas, for we are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say before you, our God and God of all ages, we are perfect and have not sinned. Rather do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed.
Dibarnu dofi, ay 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 Tafalnu sheker.
Tafalnu sheker. Ay, 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 ay,
Yahatznu Ki za'avnu Lotnu Maradnu Niatznu Sararnu Avinu Pashanu Sararnu Kishinu Horef Ay, 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 Rashanu Shichatnu Tiavnu Ta'inu Titanu Ay, 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 ay,
We read responsively. We all have committed offenses. Together we confess these human sins. The sins of arrogance, bigotry, and cynicism,
of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, injustice and jealousy.
Some of us kept grudges, were lustful, malicious, or narrow-minded.
Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish.
There was violence, weakness of will, xenophobia.
We yielded to temptation and showed zeal for bad causes.
Now may it be your will, O God of all generations, to pardon all our sins, to forgive all our wrongdoings, and to blot out all our transgressions.
For the sin against you when we sin against ourselves.
For our failures of truth, O God, we ask forgiveness.
For passing judgment without knowledge of the facts.
And for distorting facts to fit our theories.
For deceiving ourselves and others with half-truths.
And for pretending to emotions we do not feel.
For using the sins of others to excuse our own.
And
for denying responsibility for our own misfortunes.
For condemning in our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves.
And for condemning in our parents the faults we tolerate in ourselves. We sin against you when we sin against ourselves.
For our failures of justice, O God, we ask forgiveness.
For keeping the poor in the chains of poverty.
And turning a deaf ear to the cry of the oppressed.
For using violence to maintain our power.
And for using violence to bring about change.
For waging aggressive war.
And for the sin of appeasing arrogance.
For obeying criminal orders.
And for the
sin of silence and indifference.
For poisoning the air and polluting land and sea.
And for all the
evil means we employ to accomplish good ends.
We sin against you when we sin against ourselves.
For our failures of justice, O God, we ask forgiveness.
For confusing love with lust.
And for pursuing fleeting pleasure at the cost of lasting hurt.
For using others as a means to gratify our desires.
Stepping stones to further our ambitions.
For withholding love to control those we claim to love.
Serves us.
For hiding from others behind an armor of mistrust.
and for the cynicism which leads us to mistrust the reality of unselfish love.
Teach us to forgive ourselves for all these sins, O forgiving God, and help us to overcome them. For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. As in your love you have been patient with this people from the time you led us out of Egypt to the present day, so in your great love may you forgive your people now.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Adonai Eloheinu, chus berachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim, uvratzon, et tefilateinu. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Chadesh yameinu, yameinu kekedem. Chadesh yameinu, yameinu kekedem. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu.
Hear our voice, Adonai, our God. Have compassion upon us, and with that compassion, willingly accept our prayer. Cause us, Adonai, to return to you, and then we will return. Renew our days as of old. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Ve'al Olalenu V'Tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion upon us
and upon our children and infants.
Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Dever V'Cherev V'Ra'av Me'alenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, remove pestilence, sword, famine, and captivity.
Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Kol Tsar Umastin Me'alenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, rid us of every oppressor and adversary.
Avinu Malkeinu kodvenu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of good life.
Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a good year.
Avinu Malkeinu harem keren Yisrael amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, raise up the might of Israel, your people.
Avinu Malkeinu, chonenu va'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, favor us and answer us, for we have no accomplishments. Deal with us charitably and kindly and deliver us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chomol aleinu, Ve'halol aleinu, Ve'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kali Dever, Ve'ker ve'ra'av, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kali Kotzar, Umastin, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu, Besefer Kayim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodesh Aleinu, Kodesh Aleinu.
Avinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Orem, Orem, Keren Yisrael Amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu v'Hanenu, Ki ein banu masim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, V'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Koleinu, Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Koleinu, Koleinu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, V'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'Hanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'Hanenu, Ki ein banu
Talk amongst yourselves for one moment, if you would, please. Right there, got it. Right, wrong one. No, it's the wrong one. That's always the wrong one. Oh, that's the right one. Okay, stop your talking. Time out. So this week's the portion for Yom Kippur comes from the end of the book of Deuteronomy. Atem Netzavim, you all stand here today, those of you who are present, those of you who aren't, past, present, future. It is the very definition of Jewish chaos and the very definition of Jewish unity at the same time. If you'd like to follow along, you may do so on page 15 of your Machzor. Sadly, the first part is missing, so Allison, the part that Allison's going to be chanting is not in there, but it will be there thereafter. Let's bring you guys up for the blessing, please. Rabbi, if you would.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Stay right there, you guys did great. No, you're second. Oh, Allison's first. Welcome to Hakafah.
So my part is in the...
Oh, it's in yours?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in your book, not in my book. Oh, let me have it then. Oh, good. It is in your book. I take that back.
Amen. Atem nitzakvim hayom kulechem lifnei Adonai Elohechem Rashechem Shivtechem Ziknechem V'shodrehem Kol Ish Yisrael Tapchem Nishechem V'gercha Asher Bekerev Machanecha Mehotev Etzecha Ad Shoev Memecha Le'avracha Bivrit Adonai Elohecha Uvalato Asher Adonai Elohecha Koret Imcha Hayom Leman Hakimot Hayom Lo Le'am V'hu Yelecha Le'Elohim Ka'asher Diber Lach V'ka'asher Nishba La'avotecha La'avraham U'Yitzhak U'Yaakov V'lo itchem levadchem Anochi Koret et habrit hazot ve'et ha'ala hazot ki et asher yeshno po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher eineinu po imanu hayom.
Continue on page 16.
Ra'e natati lefanecha hayom et hachayim ve'et hatov ve'et hamavet ve'et harav asher anochi mitzavecha hayom le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lalechet bidrachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'hukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita uverachacha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher tava shama l'rishta.
Higati lachem hayom ki avod tuvedu lo tarichu yamim al ha'adamah asher ata over et hayardeh lavo shahama l'rishta haidoti vachem hayom et hashemayim v'et haaretz chachayim hamavet natati lefanecha habracha v'chachala uvacharta b'chayim lema'atihiyeh ata v'zarecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Our Haftarah reading can be found beginning on page 17. The blessings on page 16. Yes, am I right about that? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek. Kara v'garon al tachshoch כשופר הרם קולך והגה לעמי פשעם ולבית יעקב חטאותם.
God says, cry with a full throat. Do not hold back. Let your voice resound like a shofar. Declare to my people their transgression, and to the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a people that does what is right and has not forsaken the way of its God.
Because on your fast day you pursue your own affairs, while you oppress all your workers, because your fasting leads only to strife and discord, while you strike with cruel fists, such fasting on this day will not help you to be heard on high.
Is this the fast I have chosen, a day of self-affliction, bowing your head like a reed and covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes? Is this what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Eternal? Is not this the fast I have chosen, to unlock the shackles of injustice, to loosen the ropes of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to tear every yoke apart? Surely it is to share your bread with the hungry and to bring the homeless poor into your home. When you see the naked, to cover them, never withdrawing yourself from your own kin.
If you remove lawlessness from your midst, the pointing finger, the malicious word, if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall shine in the darkness, and your night become bright as noon. The Eternal One will guide you always, filling your throat in parched lands and renewing your body's strength. You shall be like a garden overflowing with water, like a spring that never fails. Some of you shall rebuild the ancient ruins, rebuilding the foundations of ages past. You shall be called repairer of the breach, restorer of streets to dwell in.
Tita nagal Adonai, v'hir kavticha al bamote haaretz v'hachalticha nachalat Yaakov avicha ki pi Adonai diber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzor kol haolamim tzadik b'chol hadorot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdaber kayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu lechavod ol tifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umbarachim otach yitbarak shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed udvarcha emet b'kayam le'ahad. Baruch atah Adonai melech mochel v'soleach lavoteinu v'la'avonot amo beit Yisrael uma'aver ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana melech al kol haaretz mikadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim.
I'm Peggy Kimball. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote, "Judaism begins not in wonder that the world is, but in protest that the world is not as it ought to be." Here is my prayer for the world. The world is beautiful. All around us are the wonders of the ordinary and the extraordinary. Gardens, friendships, medicine, songs, dogs, the taste of a ripe tomato, the light in a child's eyes. There are joyful moments so perfect that they take my breath away. The world is broken. All around us are the consequences of greed: hunger, poverty, loneliness, bigotry, guns, raging fires. There are powerful people making decisions so cruel that they take my breath away. I pray that we do not simply call on God to heal the world, because we know that thoughts and prayers are not enough. Let us come together with determination, courage, and imagination. Even when we don't know exactly what to do, even when we have problems that can't be solved, even when we face the unimaginable, may we have the capacity and the will to reach out to those who struggle. On the high holidays, we are linked to Jews around the world. We join the prayers and protests of past and future generations. We share an understanding that the world is not a safe enough place, and we share the obligation to make it better. As the theologian Kate Bowler has noted, with so much we have, there is so much to lose. So here we are. We are here, and we are strong enough to try to repair the broken world. Amen.
On page 19.
It's Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar dracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu kekedem.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. My brother Aaron recently asked me what has been the greatest culture shock that I've experienced moving back here after living in LA for the past 4 years. Without question, I'm reminded of two things every single time I step outside. One, how much nicer people are in the Midwest. And two, there is a significantly smaller population of people who are unhoused here on the North Shore than in our neighborhood in LA. Los Angeles has one of the worst housing crises in our country, with over 69,000 people living on the streets or struggling with housing. To put that number into perspective, people experiencing homelessness in Chicago number under 3,900. So LA has roughly 18 times more people who are unhoused than here in Chicago. A recent study found that 54% of unhoused Angelenos reported having a mental health condition. Zachary Coyle, who is the director of LA's organization, The People Concern, explained that being on the streets for any amount of time under stress creates mental unwellness. Everybody on the streets is struggling with mental health. In fact, simply being on the streets is traumatizing in and of itself. Coyle adds that one night on the streets is scary, and it changes your mental picture in your physiology and your emergency response. You become a completely different person. Disentangling the relationship between mental illness and homelessness is complicated. It's so complicated that professionals who work in these fields refer to the two as a never-ending loop. Mental illness and homelessness are perpetually intertwined. When we first moved to LA, we were stunned by the reality of these statistics. Encampments reside on most traffic corners and underpasses. Benches and bus stops are overcrowded with an entire life stuffed into a single grocery cart. And perhaps the most uncomfortable dichotomy of all, the rich and the famous in their expensive clothes and cars and lifestyles, literally stepping over, ignoring, and even harassing the many unhoused folks who are just trying to survive another day. I'm embarrassed to admit that after a few months of living in LA, the visible pain and discomfort of people who are unhoused began to fade into the background of my everyday living, like a kind of white noise that we stopped hearing, even though it was still there. At times, I even feared for my own safety. Walking by certain people who were unhoused and struggling with mental illness, I felt they were in a completely different universe. LA's wealth disparity is a particularly clear example of the human capacity to blatantly ignore what is directly in front of us on a daily basis. Without question, I was part of the problem, and I still am. Part of the reason I chose to pursue my rabbinical studies in LA was to be near one of my oldest and dearest friends, Sam. I've known Sam almost my entire life. We grew up together, and he and his partner were living in LA when Yaakov and I moved there. Let me tell you something about Sam. When my brother Aaron was diagnosed with cancer in 2010, Sam flew cross-country to sit alongside us at Aaron's bedside during his chemo treatments. That's Sam in a nutshell. I was excited to spend 4 years with him, exploring LA and making memories together. COVID, of course, rained on our parade for several years. And then I received a phone call from Sam's partner in January of this year. Sam was experiencing a medication-induced psychotic break. At the time of the call, I didn't truly understand what those words meant. I just knew that something was very wrong, and Sam's recurring depression had taken a turn for the worst. I watched my friend sit for hours in the same position, not moving a muscle, staring at the front cover of a gardening magazine that I'd bought for him. Deep in his own universe, he stared and stared, and he stared at those flowers and plants on the cover, and my heart broke into a million pieces. Sam's physical body was right in front of me, but I kept thinking, where has Sam gone? Where has my friend gone? Those of us who have experienced a mental health crisis, first or second hand, know that it is nothing short of terrifying to sit in front of a person whom you love with all of your heart and see them reduced to a state of deep misery, exhaustion, and emptiness. Are they still there, you wonder? The feeling of helplessness can be overwhelming. Eventually, Sam dropped the gardening magazine and fell asleep, and I was still left wondering, where has he gone? The Haftarah for Yom Kippur afternoon, known as Maftir Yonah, or the story of Jonah, is one of the most celebrated Haftarot of the year. Our tradition teaches that the recitation of this Haftarah brings with it the blessing of wealth and can propel a person toward teshuvah, or repentance. The obvious reason that this Haftarah is chanted on Yom Kippur is because the story of Jonah is a story of teshuvah. But this year, I read the story of Jonah as the story of Sam, and all the Sams in my life whom I've known or have yet to know. Like Sam's story, Jonah's is a tale with moments of self-aggrandizement, of incredible activity and productivity, mixed with episodes of severe depression, self-pity, and even suicidal ideation. At the beginning of Jonah's story, God calls to him and commands Jonah to go to Nineveh to demand that the people there repent from their evil ways. We see signs of Jonah's mental illness in his reaction to God's order. Jonah tries to run from an omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient God, and not just run. According to a Talmudic interpretation, he runs in the most outlandish, exaggerated way possible. He goes to the coast to sail away from God's command. He charters an entire boat and its crew to sail to the other side of the known world, as if God wouldn't know where to find Jonah. This kind of grand but pointlessly rash action mimics a manic episode. As soon as Jonah's chartered boat sets sail, a massive storm strikes. But while the sailors are throwing cargo overboard to survive, Jonah goes to sleep. His mania has ended, and despite the raging storm, he cannot rouse himself from bed. All he can do is sleep. When the storm will not abate, the sailors try to wake Jonah to help him save the ship. But instead, Jonah tells the crew, "Heave me overboard, and the sea will calm down for you. For I know that this terrible storm came upon you on my account." Through volunteering to be thrown overboard into a raging, stormy water, and soon after being swallowed by a giant fish, Jonah paints for us the tempestuous experience of the oftentimes irrational thinking of mental illness. When Jonah asks to be tossed into the waters, the sailors don't comfort him. They don't confront his suicidal thoughts or counsel him against this extreme action. They willingly throw him overboard. Today, we are still guilty of throwing overboard those struggling with mental illness, and especially those struggling with mental illness who are unhoused. They wait in the darkness as if they were trapped in the bellies of fish. As Jonah described, "Efafuni mayim ad nefesh tehom yesoveveni sof." The waters closed in on me, the deep engulfed me. "Lekitzvei harim yaradati haaretz bricheha ba'edi le'olam." I sank to the base of the mountains. The bars of the earth closed upon me forever. Too many of us are familiar with this experience of crushing isolation and silence, as if we too were living inside the dark belly of an enormous fish for extended periods of time. In fact, 50% of the people in this room have been impacted by mental illness in their lives. 50%. But out and about in the world, it doesn't feel that prevalent because it is so much easier for our society to throw these folks overboard than to meet them where they are. So for those lacking in sufficient resources or support networks or professional assistance, they, like Jonah, feel the waters have closed in on them and they sink to the base of the mountains and they feel terrifyingly alone in the darkness. The brilliant Robin Williams, who died by suicide in 2014, said in Good Will Hunting, "I used to think that the worst thing in life was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone." Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Forgive us, God. We have sinned. We have caused so many people to feel alone. One of my favorite moments in the Tanakh is found in the book of 1 Samuel when we meet David. The story goes that King Saul was troubled and would call upon David to play his harp. Then Saul would feel better and the tormenting spirit upon him would go away. For years I read this verse understanding that it was meant to teach us of the healing power of music, that David's musical talents would soothe Saul. But when confronted with Sam's darkness this year, I now understand a deeper message. In the verses leading up to this musical moment, we are told that the Spirit of God had left Saul and was replaced by a spirit that filled him with depression and fear. King Saul was overcome by a ruach ra'ah, a bad spirit, or what we may understand today as bipolar disorder or a major depressive illness. Our text reveals that Saul tells those around him of his misery, and in doing so, they are better able to support him. It is not necessarily David's music that heals Saul, as much as it is David's presence. And later on, David himself goes into that darkness. Tavati beven mitsula ve'en ma'amad. I am sunk into a deep mire, he says. There is no standing up. I have come into the deepest depths. The current has carried me away. These words from Psalm 69 express so clearly the spiritual bottom that mental illness can sink one into. Jonah too opens up to God and tells God that he wants to die. Ki tov moti mechaye, please God, my death would be better than my life. Even Moses cries out, I can no longer bear the burden of this people alone. It's too heavy for me. Please kill me. Let me no longer see my wretchedness. Moses said that. Our biblical ancestors faced horrific darkness. Rabbi Elliot Kukla of the Bay Area Healing Center explains, what the biblical stories teach us is that mental distress is a natural part of human life and a part of every society. Finding the strength to walk with others through their incredible pain is an ancient and sacred obligation. Even the Talmud, written 1,500 years ago, discusses depression and how best to offer support. In Tractate Brachot, we read the story of Rabbi Eliezer, who is ill and suffering from deep despair. When his friend Rabbi Yochanan visits him, he finds Eliezer alone in a darkened room facing a wall. When Yochanan sees his friend crying, he says, "Why are you crying?" Eliezer says, "I weep because all light fades into darkness, because all beauty eventually rots." Yochanan, sitting beside his friend, replies, "Yes, ultimately everything does die, so perhaps you have reason to weep." Then Yochanan sits down with his friend and weeps alongside him. After a while, Yochanan asks, "Does darkness comfort you? Do you want these surroundings?" "No," Eliezer says. "Then give me your hand," replies Yochanan, and he lifts Rabbi Eliezer from his bed and out of his darkened room. The Talmud then comments on itself, asking, why didn't Rabbi Yochanan just get up himself? The Talmud's answer, because the prisoner cannot free himself from prison. A prisoner depends on others to release him from his shackles. Prisoners cannot free themselves from prison. When we consciously practice empathy and compassion and are willing to truly open our eyes to those around us, we might be able to lift up those struggling with mental illness. And those for whom there is no recovery, for whom effective healing of mental illness is not feasible, at least they can be met without judgment, agenda fixing, or setting straight. They can know that they are not alone in their pain. But if they allow you, it is to be present with them, within the gut of their prison, and accompany them in their darkness. It is important to note that sometimes when we extend a helping hand to the person suffering in the belly of the fish, the person might push us away. No matter our most extensive efforts to free them from their prison, they might resist us. They might refuse our help. They might distance from us even further. These painful situations can sometimes cause us too to feel like we are trapped in that same darkness. Judaism has always understood that physical and mental illness are equally deserving of healing, and we are all a key to that healing. Judaism understands emotional and spiritual pain are as real and serious as that of the physical pain of the body. Look at the Mishaberach, our prayer for healing. Refuat ha-nefesh u refuat ha-guf. We pray for healing of the soul and healing of the body. In fact, today on Yom Kippur, we find ourselves praying for tikkun hanefesh, repair of the soul, because our tradition knows how painful the darkness can be. In our society, we are so accustomed to avoiding darkness with night lights for our children to ward off monsters and televisions that we leave on blaring into the night to fill in our dark silence. We forget darkness is not only inevitable, but it can be a powerful and holy place as well. It is where Jacob meets the angel, and it is where Moses comes face to face with God. Yes, there may be monsters of one form or another in the dark, but it is only through confronting them that we can truly dispel their power. Today, on this holy day of introspection, we need to explore why we fear this darkness and why we have allowed it to create such an unjust and hurtful schism in our society. As we search our souls, we also examine our views and our prejudices about mental illness. What words do we use? How might we be perpetuating harmful stigmas when we loosely use words like wacko or say that someone is acting crazy? What might it sound like when we casually say, "That was so bad I wanted to kill myself," or "I'd rather jump off a bridge than do X, Y, or Z"? It wasn't until I was consumed with Sam's darkness that I finally began looking into the faces of the people who were struggling with mental illness in my neighborhood. It wasn't until I watched Sam struggle to even open his eyes in the morning that I began to notice the person in a sleeping bag, curled up beneath layers of newspaper. It wasn't until I experienced the privilege of watching Sam begin his insurance-covered treatment by the best doctors that I began wondering what services are available to those who don't have insurance. It wasn't until I met Eleanor that my understanding of my obligation and responsibility to our country's mental health epidemic became clear. Yaakov and I were returning home from an evening stroller walk with our son when we found Eleanor sitting on our sidewalk. "Excuse me," she said, "do you know somewhere safe I can sleep tonight?" Her tattered shoes told me that she had been homeless for quite some time, this woman in her 80s. That evening, Yaakov and I contacted over 11 homeless shelters, none of which offered their services on weekends. We were shocked that LA County would leave people who are unhoused for 2 full days without food, water, or shelter. So we called police and fire stations in hope of locating additional resources, and we came up empty. I am not telling you this story to boast about how we cooked Eleanor dinner or gave her shoes from our closet or put her up at a hotel that night. I am telling you this story to share my own shame and my own deep frustration. It wasn't until it happened to my dearest friend, it wasn't until it happened to me that I finally began to wake up from my blind, egotistical slumber. I have walked by 1,000 Eleanors in my lifetime, be it in Chicago or LA or elsewhere. I have consistently been guilty of one or more of the following inactions: fearing them, increasing my physical distance from them, judging them, or perhaps the worst offense of all, being indifferent and ignoring them completely. I threw them overboard. I have made them a them and not an us or a we. Of course, it should be noted that my impulse to distance myself from people on the streets with mental illness is not unfounded. My neighborhood in LA was home to Carl, the super friendly but nerve-wracking man who was unhoused. On some days, Carl would wave to passersby, and on other days, he seemed to be lost in a universe of his own. But my neighborhood was also home to Sean Laval Smith, also a man who was unhoused, who walked into our corner furniture store in March and stabbed to death 24-year-old Brianna Kupfer. We certainly should use our best judgment on the streets, but just as certainly, We should not be judging those on the streets. When we pass by and pass judgment that they are lazy or crazy or anything in between, and then carry on with our privileged, comfortable lives in the face of their pain, we must ask ourselves, who is really the crazy one? Ashamnu. We are guilty. I am guilty. Why did it take this happening to Sam for me to hear the crying of the shofar to wake up? Why does it take seeing ourselves and others in order for us to be moved to action? And what will it take for us to see our friends, our brothers and sisters, our neighbors in the faces of strangers? What will it take for us to empathize with experiences and issues that are beyond our own reality? If you're alone and you're staring at a mountain that you're about to climb, scientists tell us that our brain perceives the mountain to be 20% steeper than if you have someone by your side who will climb the mountain with you. In other words, our brains are literally more confident, capable, and empowered when we have someone by our side. I think of my lifelong friend, Sam, and how blessed he is to have an ongoing support network of fellow mountain climbers scaling the cliff alongside him. But what about those who are unhoused, uninsured, struggling with mental illness, who have no one to climb that mountain? There is a Hasidic story about an elderly couple who go to see their doctor. What seems to be the problem, the doctor says. The husband says, My wife's arm is in so much pain, doctor. My wife's arm hurts us. The doctor says, I see, but you meant to say your wife's arm hurts her. You said her arm hurts us. The elderly man confirms, no, doctor, my arm is hurting us. When a part of my beloved is hurting, I am hurting too. Apart from this being a totally romantic anecdote, it speaks volumes about the power of interconnectivity and what it means to be in compassionate relationship to others. In an age where social media has both gifted and cursed us with the ability to connect to another human in literal seconds, we must ask ourselves, are we truly connecting or are we just connected? Imagine how powerful our world could be if we walked through our days realizing that when one of us is hurting, we are all hurting. Mental illness is a communal issue that impacts every single one of us. Whether we have been directly impacted by it yet or not should not matter. With September being National Suicide Prevention Month, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you what Sam had told me about our Unatana Tokef prayer that we read on Yom Kippur. For many years, it was for him a suicide ideation list. Who shall perish by water and who by fire? Who by sword and who by wild beast? Who by famine and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangulation? Unatana Tokef was Sam's painful reminder of how much he couldn't imagine having the strength to make it through being inscribed in the book of life again. But what if we don't wait until it personally happens to us? What if we now develop the compassion and empathy to understand that if their arm is hurting, then all of our arms are hurting? If the person beside you here right now might be reading Unatana Tokef as a suicide ideation list, then we must all be called to action. What if we become the catalysts for inspiring people who are unhoused, struggling with mental illness, to want to be inscribed in the book of life again? If they allow us, we can help them out of the belly of darkness. We have a responsibility to create an environment that nurtures open dialogue and understanding. We must actively educate ourselves about mental health, dispelling the many myths and misconceptions that surround it. We need to break down the barriers that prevent individuals from seeking and obtaining help and support. Those who suffer in our world sometimes need a voice when they can't use their own. And this is where all of us come in. The National Alliance of Mental Health encourages us to take 3 action steps to shatter the stigma of mental illness. 1, educate yourselves and others, and know that mental illness is not the result of personal weakness or lack of character or poor upbringing, and actively work to eradicate mistaken notions about mental illness. 2, see the person and not the condition. Each person has their own story, path, and journey that says so much more about them than their diagnosis. And 3, vote. Fight for legislation and policies that will facilitate access to treatment and recovery for those who need it. And check out Project Let's Erase That Stigma, which aims to protect rights of people struggling with mental illness through policy change. And to my friend Sam, if you're watching this right now, thank you. Thank you for your courage and permission to share your important story with all of us here today. While it pains me that it took this happening to you for me to rouse myself out of my all too comfortable slumber, I am deeply grateful for the mirror that you are bravely holding up for all of us here today. Jonah did not free himself from the belly of the fish. He did not gather all of his strength and pry open the mouth of the fish. He did not slay it himself and emerge victorious and powerful. It was not until God released Jonah from the belly of the fish that Jonah emerged from the depths of his darkness and saw the light once more. If we are all created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God, and have a piece of the divine in our souls, which I wholeheartedly believe we all do, then it is our obligation and responsibility to show up for those who find themselves in darkness. It is our imperative to understand that they cannot free themselves. May the cry of the shofar this Yom Kippur breed an urgency within the depths of our souls to move us to action, to encourage us to see, to truly see the Sams, the Eleanors, the Jonahs on our streets who are aching miserably in the bellies of fish. We must see them with reinvigorated, compassionate, full hearts. Only when that happens will we be able to raise each other up to more than we can be. Misha berach avotenu v'imotenu hu yerapah hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all who live with mental illness, their caregivers, their families, and their friends. Please, God, let all who need it have a complete healing of body, mind, and spirit. Amen.
When I am down and oh, my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to sail on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
That concludes our morning service. Study will begin in about 10 minutes in the Centennial Room. Family service here at 1:30. Live music at 2:30 over there.